Hello, and welcome to History at Bedtime. It still stands in the center of Rome. The streets around it are full of ordinary modern motion. Scooters, buses, camera straps, impatient drivers, tour guides holding little flags, people crossing from the metro station into the sun, voices in many languages rising against the stone. And then the building appears, so familiar that it almost seems unreal, so often photographed that the mind thinks it already knows it before the body has stood beside it. But the body does not know it until it is there. The Colosseum is larger than memory expects. Its outer wall curves around the sky. Its arches repeat with a rhythm that is both severe and graceful. Its stones carry holes where metal clamps were torn out long after the empire was gone. Its broken side reveals the thickness of the ancient structure like a wound cut through time. Through the openings, one can see corridors, shadows, stairs, fragments of seating, and the empty oval where crowds once looked down towards sand. It is a ruin, but not a dead one. The Colosseum has survived fire, earthquake, neglect, quarrying, fortress building, Christian reinterpretation, archaeological excavation, restoration, mass tourism, and the slow pressure of almost 2,000 years of weather. It no longer functions as Rome intended it to function, but it has never stopped working on the human imagination. It still gathers people. It still makes them look upward. It still asks them to think about Rome, power, beauty, cruelty, architecture, entertainment, memory, and the strange fact that human beings can build something magnificent for purposes that trouble the conscience. That is the first truth of the Colosseum. It is beautiful. That is the second truth. It was built for violence. Neither truth cancels the other. The building cannot be honestly understood if its elegance is denied. It also cannot be honestly understood if the suffering inside it is softened into tourist romance. The Colosseum was an architectural and engineering achievement of extraordinary intelligence. It was also a machine for public spectacle, including the deaths of people and animals before enormous crowds. To enter its history is to hold both realities at once. There was a time when the arena floor was covered with sand. The Latin word arena meant sand, and from it came the word arena. The sand absorbed blood. It gave the fighters footing. It could be raked smooth between events, hiding what had just happened so the next performance could begin. Above that sand, perhaps 50,000 people might be seated in ranks arranged by law, privilege, gender, citizenship, office, and status. Below it, after the underground passages were added, men waited with ropes, cages, lifts, props, scenery, animals, weapons, and instructions. The Colosseum was not chaos. It was order applied to spectacle. Every arch, corridor, stairway, gate, tier, passage, barrier, and service chamber existed because Rome had learned to organize crowds and display power at scale. The building took the raw appetites of the city and gave them geometry. It turned political generosity into stone. It turned imperial conquest into performance. It turned social hierarchy into seating. It turned punishment, combat, courage, fear, training, animal capture, commerce, engineering, and public emotion into a day that could be scheduled, advertised, attended, remembered, and repeated. The building now called the Colosseum was known in antiquity as the Great Amphitheater of the Flavian emperors. The dynasty matters. Before it stood there, the space had belonged to Nero. After the Great Fire of 64 CE, Nero built the Domus Aurea, the Golden House, a palace complex so vast and extravagant that it seemed to swallow parts of Rome into the emperor's private fantasy. There were gardens, porticos, dining rooms, painted chambers, artificial landscapes, and, near the place where the Colosseum later rose, an artificial lake. The city had burned. The emperor built pleasure. Nero's memory became poisonous. After his fall and suicide in 68 CE, Rome passed through civil war. One emperor after another rose and collapsed in the violent year that followed. Galba, Otho, Vitellius, and then Vespasian. The old imperial order had shaken. The army had made and unmade rulers. Rome needed stability. The new emperor needed legitimacy. Vespasian was not an aristocratic ornament like some of the old houses of Rome. He was a soldier, practical, hard, experienced, and politically intelligent. He understood that a dynasty born from civil war had to present itself as a restoration of public order. It had to say, not only with coins and decrees, but with stone, the private excess of Nero is over. The city belongs again to the Roman people. So the lake was drained. On the ground where Nero had placed a symbol of imperial luxury, the Flavians built a public amphitheater. This was not merely a building project. It was an argument. Where Nero had taken, Vespasian returned. Where one emperor had enclosed pleasure for himself, another offered spectacle to the crowd. Where water had reflected the golden house, stone now rose in tears for the city. The message would have been obvious to Romans walking past the work as it grew. The new dynasty was giving Rome back to Rome. Of course, the gift was not innocent. No imperial gift ever is. A building that holds 50,000 people also holds 50,000 opinions, hungers, resentments, loyalties, jokes, rumors, and demands. The emperor who provides games does not merely entertain. He speaks to the crowd in the language of generosity. He says, I can feed you with spectacle. I can spend wealth on your pleasure. I can bring the empire's animals into your sight. I can show you punishment, courage, exotic marvels, and public order. I can make Rome feel like the center of the world. The crowd, in turn, speaks back. A crowd can cheer. It can demand. It can laugh. It can turn cold. It can ask for mercy. It can call for death. It can shout complaints to the emperor in a place where the emperor must listen, because silence from 50,000 people is also a political sound. The Colosseum was a theater of power not only because men fought there, but because emperor and people watched one another across the arena. Construction began under Vespasian around 70 or 72 CE. It continued through his reign and was inaugurated under his son Titus in 80 CE. A third Flavian emperor, Domitian, changed the building further, adding the underground network known as the hypogeum and refining the machinery of spectacle. Thus, the Colosseum was not the work of one man only. It was the architectural signature of a dynasty. The dynasty itself had risen from war, and war helped pay for the monument. The Jewish war brought immense wealth to Rome. Jerusalem fell in 70 CE. The temple was destroyed. Roman triumph celebrated victory. Spoils passed into imperial hands. Nearby, the Arch of Titus still shows Roman soldiers carrying sacred objects from Jerusalem, including the menorah. The connection is uncomfortable but necessary. The Colosseum, Rome's most famous arena, belongs also to the story of imperial conquest far from Rome, to the transfer of wealth from a defeated people into a monument of victory at the empire's center. The stone of the amphitheater was not neutral. It carried politics from the beginning. Travertine limestone came from quarries near Tivoli. Tough, brick, and concrete formed interior structures. Roman concrete, made with lime, aggregate, and volcanic materials, allowed builders to create strong vaults, corridors, supports, and foundations with a flexibility that cut stone alone could not have provided. Iron clamps once held blocks together. Marble once covered seats and surfaces that are now mostly stripped away. Painted surfaces, inscriptions, statues, awnings, tickets, barriers, ropes, wooden platforms, and temporary decorations completed the building in ways that modern ruins only partially preserve. The Colosseum today is pale stone and open air. The ancient Colosseum was more finished, more crowded, more colorful, louder, dirtier, and more complicated. Its exterior rose in stacked orders of arches and columns. The lower levels carried engaged columns in Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian styles, or Roman versions of them, creating a visual ascent from strength to refinement. This pattern made the massive structure readable. Without such articulation, the building might have seemed like a simple mountain of masonry. With it, the wall became rhythm. Repetition prevented heaviness from becoming dull. Each arch was like the beat of a drum around the oval. There were 80 entrances around the outside. This number matters because the Colosseum was as much a crowd-handling machine as an arena. Spectators did not simply surge into one doorway and fight their way through confusion. Tickets, entrances, stairways, corridors, and seating sections created a system. A person could enter through a numbered arch and move toward an assigned part of the cavea, the seating bowl. The corridors opened and divided movement, guiding thousands into place and later allowing them to leave with remarkable speed. The word vomitorium has often been misunderstood. It did not mean a special chamber for overeating Romans to empty their stomachs. It meant a passage that discharged people quickly from a structure. The architecture seemed to vomit the crowd out, not in disgust, but in efficiency. The Romans had a gift for making movement visible in stone. Aqueducts carrying water, roads carrying legions and goods, sewers carrying waste, and here, corridors carrying citizens to their places in the great social theater. Inside, seating was not democratic. Rome was never more itself than when it arranged people by rank. The emperor and his party occupied the most prestigious position. Senators sat close to the arena. The Vestal virgins had honored seats. Equestrians occupied their own zones. Citizens sat by status, profession, gender, and legal identity. Women and the poorest spectators were usually placed higher, farther from the action and closer to the sun. The seating arrangement turned society into architecture. Every person could see where everyone else belonged. A man entering the Colosseum did not merely attend a show. He entered a diagram of Rome. The hierarchy that governed courts, marriages, offices, streets, households, and law became spatial. The powerful sat low, near the sand. The less powerful sat high, near the sky. The emperor, visible to the crowd and protected by distance, presided not only over combat, but over the ordered body of the city. Even shade had politics. The velarium, the great awning stretched over part of the seating area, required ropes, poles, rigging, and specialists. Sailors from the fleet were well suited to handling it, because it functioned like an enormous sail fixed over a building rather than over a ship. It could soften the Roman sun for thousands of spectators. It did not make the day cool, and it did not shade everything equally, but it showed again how Roman engineering served public experience. The crowd was not simply crammed into stone. It was managed, shaded, fed, directed, and emotionally guided. A day at the Colosseum began before the crowd saw the first event. Far below the entrances, in holding areas, service corridors, and staging spaces, workers prepared the show. Animals had to be moved, fed, restrained, and sometimes angered. Weapons had to be checked. Sand had to be raked. Gates had to be secured. Scenery had to be positioned. Musicians, attendants, guards, officials, trainers, handlers, executioners, and fighters had to know their cues. Spectacle depends on hidden labor. The crowd sees surprise because someone backstage has made surprise possible. In the earliest phase, before the permanent hypogeum, the arena could be more flexible. Ancient accounts speak of water spectacles, including mock sea battles. Whether every detail later told about these watery shows belongs to the Colosseum itself or to other places and earlier phases must be handled carefully. But the idea is important. The Roman imagination wanted the arena to become whatever the state could afford it to become: forest, desert, battlefield, execution ground, theater, sea, underworld, hunting ground, or mythic landscape. After Domitian added the hypogeum, the underground world made other kinds of illusion possible. The hypogeum was a labyrinth of corridors and chambers under the sand. Today, because much of the arena floor is gone, visitors can look down into it. In antiquity, most spectators could not. They saw only the surface. Beneath that surface, people waited in darkness and noise. Cages held animals. Lifts were prepared. Trapdoors opened. Platforms rose. A beast could appear suddenly in the arena as if conjured. A painted structure could emerge. A fighter could be brought upward into sunlight before tens of thousands of eyes. The effect must have been powerful. The crowd knew there were mechanisms, just as a theater audience knows there are machines behind a stage. Knowledge does not remove wonder. It sharpens it. The pleasure was not that magic existed, but that Rome could create the appearance of magic by organization. The arena became a place where imperial power seemed to command nature, distance, myth, death, and surprise. The morning often belonged to animals. The Venetians, the hunts, displayed creatures brought from across the empire and beyond its edges. Lions, leopards, bears, bulls, boars, ostriches, crocodiles, elephants, rhinoceroses, giraffes, and other animals appeared at different times in Roman spectacle. Their presence said something before any weapon was lifted. They were living maps. A lion from Africa, a bear from northern forests, an exotic bird, a strange horned animal from a distant land. Each creature made the empire visible to people who might never travel farther than the neighborhoods of Rome. The arena was a geography lesson written in fear. To bring animals to Rome required enormous effort. Hunters, trappers, local officials, merchants, ship captains, handlers, veterinarians or practical animal keepers, guards, and administrators all participated in chains of capture and transport. Animals died before they ever reached the arena. Those that survived were displayed, killed, or sometimes used to kill. A spectacular show in Rome might devastate animal populations far away. The crowd's amazement had ecological costs that the crowd could not see. The animal hunts were not always simple slaughter. They could involve skilled performers, trained hunters, scenery, staged landscapes, and carefully timed effects. Venators and bestiarii learned how to face animals, dodge them, provoke them, use spears, nets, barriers, and the layout of the arena. Their status was usually lower than that of celebrated gladiators, but their work required courage and expertise. A man facing a large animal in front of thousands could not fake competence for long. The morning could feel like imperial mastery over the natural world. The midday events could feel darker. Public executions were a major part of arena spectacle. Condemned criminals, enslaved rebels, prisoners, deserters, and others could be killed in forms designed not merely to remove them from society, but to display the consequences of violating Roman order. Some were exposed to beasts. Some were burned. Some were forced into mythological reenactments where the story's death became the condemned person's death. Roman punishment could be theatrical because the state wanted punishment to teach as well as kill. To modern feeling, this may be the hardest part to hold. The execution of a person who has no meaningful chance to survive is different from a trained combat between armed fighters, even if both are violent. Many Romans understood a distinction as well. Gladiators could display courage, skill, and professional identity. Condemned people in staged executions often existed as warnings. Their bodies became messages. This is what Rome does to the defeated, the criminal, the rebel, the outsider who has fallen under judgment. The arena was not only entertainment. It was law with an audience. Then came the afternoon, the hour most associated with gladiators. The word gladiator comes from gladius, a sword, but the world of gladiators was not simply a crowd of men with swords. It was structured, trained, categorized, advertised, and judged with precision. Different types of fighters had different equipment and tactical identities. Some were heavily armed. Some were more exposed. Some fought with nets and tridents. Some with curved blades and small shields. Some with large shields and helmets that limited vision. The drama came from contrast. The pairing of a retiarius and a secutor is the clearest example. The retiarius fought with a net, a trident, and a dagger. He was lightly armored, mobile, vulnerable, and dependent on distance. The secutor wore a smooth helmet, carried a large shield and short sword, and was built to close the distance. His helmet protected him but limited sight and breath. The retiarius needed space and timing. The secutor needed pressure and control. The crowd could understand the problem immediately. Can the lighter fighter keep away long enough to entangle, or will the heavier fighter corner him? Other pairings produced other pleasures. The murmillo, the thraex, the hoplomachus, the provocator. Names, equipment, styles, and expectations formed a language that regular spectators knew. The crowd was not ignorant of the sport. It watched with trained eyes, much as later crowds would watch boxing, fencing, bullfighting, wrestling, football, or racing with knowledge of form, rhythm, risk, and reputation. A bad match could disappoint. A brave performance could be admired. A clever move could bring a roar. Gladiators were not all the same socially. Some were enslaved. Some were prisoners of war. Some were condemned criminals. Some were free volunteers who signed contracts, trading legal honor and bodily risk for money, food, training, fame, or escape from poverty. The free volunteer did not make the institution gentle, but his existence complicates the simple picture. The arena was degrading in law and glamorous in popular feeling. A gladiator could be socially dishonored and sexually desired, legally marginal and publicly famous, trapped and celebrated at once. This ambiguity is essential. Roman culture admired courage. It also despised certain professions that sold the body for public performance. Actors, prostitutes, and gladiators all occupied ambiguous moral territory. The gladiator, especially, displayed virtus, the courage and disciplined strength Romans valued, while existing in a condition many Romans considered shameful. He was admired for qualities that respectable men wanted to possess, but the way he displayed them marked him as outside respectability. The gladiator school, the ludus, was therefore both prison and workplace, barracks and training center, business and death house. Near the Colosseum stood several such schools. The Ludus Magnus, the Great School, lay close enough to connect to the amphitheater by underground passage. There, fighters trained under strict supervision. They practiced with wooden weapons. They learned footwork, defense, endurance, timing, and the rules of their assigned type. They ate controlled diets meant to build strength and mass. They received medical attention because trained fighters were valuable investments. A dead gladiator could excite a crowd, but a skilled gladiator who survived could fight again and make money again. This is another uncomfortable fact. The games were not designed as random massacre. They were expensive. Training took time. Equipment cost money. Famous fighters had reputations worth preserving. A good bout did not always end in death. Many combats ended with missio, release, especially when the defeated fighter had shown courage. The crowd might demand mercy, and the presiding official might grant it. Death was present, but not every fight was a guaranteed execution. Yet death remained the edge that made the spectacle intense. Without real danger, the arena loses its Roman meaning. The crowd watched skill under mortal pressure. The fallen fighter raised a finger to ask for mercy. The audience judged. The official decided. The victorious fighter waited. The defeated fighter's life hung in a pause large enough for 50,000 people to feel it. That pause was part of the spectacle. It made the crowd feel powerful. The famous gesture of the thumb is less certain than modern imagination thinks. The idea of a simple thumbs up for life and thumbs down for death is a later simplification. Ancient gestures and phrases are not entirely clear, but the exact direction of the thumb matters less than the social reality. The crowd participated in judgment. It believed itself competent to decide whether a fighter had earned survival. Rome loved law, hierarchy, and procedure, but it also loved the emotional verdict of a crowd. What did the crowd value? Not merely blood. Blood was part of the spectacle, but courage mattered. A fighter who stood firm, attacked bravely, accepted pain, and faced defeat without panic could win admiration. A fighter who ran, begged, or seemed cowardly could lose it. The arena dramatized Roman moral language. It showed bodies under pressure and asked whether they displayed discipline or disgrace. This is why the Colosseum is not easy to condemn in a simple sentence, even though the suffering in it deserves condemnation. Romans did not think they were gathering only to enjoy cruelty. They thought they were seeing courage, punishment, order, generosity, imperial reach, justice, skill, and the drama of fate. Modern people do not have to accept that explanation, but understanding it is necessary. A civilization's darkest institutions often survive because they connect to values the civilization considers noble. Violence becomes most dangerous when it dresses itself as virtue. The crowd itself deserves attention. Imagine the morning of a major festival. People move through the streets before the heat rises. Vendors call. Slaves carry cushions for the wealthy. Citizens hold tickets. Boys push ahead to see. Women assigned to upper seating climb higher. Senators move toward privileged places. Soldiers manage order. Foreign visitors look upward at the building with curiosity and perhaps unease. The emperor's presence changes the atmosphere. A day at the games is not a private entertainment. It is a civic event. The smell would be strong. Dust, sweat, animals, cooked food, wine, cheap snacks, oil, leather, metal, blood, perfumes from the wealthy, damp stone in shaded passages, human breath in crowded corridors. Ancient monuments are often imagined as clean, silent, and pale. They were not. The Colosseum was a living building during games. Noisy, hot, fragrant, foul, thrilling, uncomfortable, social, and intensely physical. People ate there. They argued there. They flirted there. They gambled, discussed politics, assessed fighters, complained about seating, shouted jokes, called to friends, cheered favorite gladiators, groaned at poor performances, and watched the emperor watching them. A building that holds a crowd for hours becomes a temporary city. The arena below gives the crowd a common focus, but the crowd has its own life above the sand. Food vendors move through or around the seating areas. Fruit, nuts, bread, wine, water, perhaps sausages or other portable foods could circulate depending on event and circumstance. The games lasted long enough that appetite had to be managed. Pleasure at the Colosseum was not only visual. It involved the mouth, throat, stomach, voice, hands, and whole body. A spectator might leave hoarse, sunburned, excited, disturbed, drunk, satisfied, or morally coarsened. Seneca gives one of the most memorable moral reactions. He described the effect of midday slaughter as damaging to the soul, making a person more cruel by exposure to cruelty. His criticism matters because it proves discomfort is not only modern. Some Romans looked at the games and saw not noble courage but moral danger. They feared that watching killing for pleasure changed the watcher. That fear is still understandable. What one watches repeatedly becomes easier to watch. What a crowd cheers can begin to feel justified. What is staged beautifully can seem less ugly. The Colosseum intensifies this problem because the building itself is so impressive. Beauty can lend dignity to what happens inside it. Architecture can frame violence so powerfully that the frame begins to compete with the pain. The Emperor Marcus Aurelius is said to have attended games out of obligation while occupying himself with paperwork. Whether every detail of such accounts should be treated carefully, the image is revealing. An emperor philosopher sitting in the imperial place, while below him the old ritual of public violence continues. The machinery of Roman life could be too large for personal distaste to stop. Even rulers did not simply stand outside the expectations of the city. The Colosseum was part of the contract between ruler and people. Bread and circuses is a phrase often repeated about Rome, sometimes too lazily. Yet the underlying idea is real. The urban crowd needed food, spectacle, and recognition. The emperor needed legitimacy. Public entertainments helped maintain that relationship. Games could celebrate military victories, imperial birthdays, funerals, dedications, accessions, and festivals. They could show generosity when politics was tense. They could distract, satisfy, impress, and remind the people where abundance came from. The emperor gave. The people responded. The building turned that exchange into ritual. It is tempting to imagine that only the poor enjoyed the games, but that would be false. The Colosseum held society vertically. Senators attended. Equestrians attended. Women attended. Foreign dignitaries attended. The elite might complain about vulgar excitement, but they were present inside it. The games were not outside Roman civilization. They were at its center. They were also commercial. Gladiators could become celebrities. Their names appear in graffiti, mosaics, lamps, cups, and casual markings. Fans admired particular fighters. People remembered records, victories, styles, and deaths. Some gladiators inspired erotic fascination. Satirical writers mocked women who desired them. Whether every scandalous story reflects common reality or moral exaggeration, the phenomenon is clear enough. The arena produced fame. Fame in Rome could be strange. A man legally dishonored might be scratched onto a wall by someone who admired his body or skill. A fighter whose profession excluded him from proper civic respect could receive the emotional intensity that later ages give to athletes, actors, soldiers, or rebels. The crowd can grant a kind of glory that society officially denies. That contradiction gave gladiators their peculiar power in Roman imagination. Women also appeared in the arena, though rarely. Female gladiators were unusual enough to be noted when they appeared. A relief from Halicarnassus shows two female fighters known by stage names, Amazon and Achillea. Literary references suggest that women fought in certain spectacles, sometimes as novelty, sometimes as moral scandal, sometimes as imperial extravagance. Their rarity made them striking. The arena, already a place where social boundaries were exposed, could make gender itself part of spectacle. The animals made empire visible. The gladiators made courage visible. The executions made punishment visible. The seating made hierarchy visible. The emperor made generosity visible. This is the key. The Colosseum was a machine for visibility. Rome loved visible order. Processions, triumphs, temples, arches, inscriptions, statues, military standards, public rituals, funerals, and games all made invisible ideas into visible forms. Victory became captives in chains. Law became a magistrate's seat. Piety became a sacrifice. Status became a toga stripe or reserved seat. Power became a building. The Colosseum gathered all of this into one enormous oval. The triumphal connection is especially important. In a Roman triumph, a victorious general paraded through the city with soldiers, captives, spoils, paintings of conquered places, exotic animals, and symbols of defeated peoples. The crowd saw the empire's reach. The games did something similar in repeated, theatrical form. A lion, a prisoner, a gladiator named for a foreign enemy, a mythic execution, a staged hunt. These brought the edges of empire into the center. Rome told itself that the world had been ordered under Roman rule. The arena showed what happened to disorder. Yet the building also depended on cooperation from countless ordinary workers. Architects and engineers designed. Surveyors measured. Quarrymen cut stone. Carters transported it. Sailors and bargemen moved materials. Lime burners prepared mortar. Brickmakers shaped bricks. Concrete workers mixed and poured. Metal workers made clamps. Carpenters built centering for vaults. Rope makers, scaffold builders, labor gangs, foremen, scribes, and officials kept the project moving. The emperor's name attached to the monument, but the labor of thousands made it real. A monument simplifies authorship. Vespasian built it, one says. Titus inaugurated it. Domitian completed parts of it. But no emperor lifted the travertine blocks. No emperor stood hour after hour in dust and heat shaping stone. No emperor coordinated every cart, scaffold, meal, wage, tool, or accident. Imperial building is a pyramid of command resting on the bodies of workers. Some of those workers may have been enslaved. Some were prisoners. Some were paid laborers. Some were specialists. The exact composition varied across tasks and phases, and evidence does not allow every life to be named. But the building reminds us that Roman engineering was never only mathematics. It was organized labor. It required food, discipline, skill, danger, and administrative reach. The travertine came from beyond Rome. The empire and its surroundings were tied to the city through roads, rivers, quarries, workshops, contracts, and command. A block cut in a quarry became part of an arch. A brick stamped with an official mark became part of a wall. A metal clamp joined stones. A wooden beam held a temporary form long enough for concrete to set. Then the beam disappeared. The workers disappeared. The emperor died. The games ended, and the structure remained. Roman concrete is one of the quiet heroes of the building. Arches and vaults allowed weight to be directed, openings to repeat, corridors to curve, and crowds to move through the body of the amphitheater. The Romans did not invent every principle they used, but they applied them at immense scale. The Colosseum is impressive not because it is mysterious, but because it is intelligible. Human beings understood material, weight, pressure, geometry, and organization well enough to make a giant arena that lasted for centuries of use and many more centuries of ruin. Nothing about it requires aliens, miracles, or lost magic. It requires Rome. Rome was good at building for bodies. Roads for marching feet and wheels, baths for bathing bodies, aqueducts for thirsty bodies, sewers for waste, basilicas for legal crowds, theaters for seated spectators, and amphitheaters for mass emotion. Roman architecture often begins with a practical question. How does water move? How does a crowd enter? How does an army travel? How does a vault carry weight? How does a city stage power? The Colosseum answered several questions at once. It could hold the crowd. It could show the emperor's gift. It could display hierarchy. It could stage violence. It could connect Rome to conquered lands. It could make the Flavian dynasty look generous and strong. It could replace Nero's private lake with public stone. It could turn the center of the city into a theater of imperial order. The building's official life lasted centuries, but not unchanged. Spectacles evolved. Repairs were made after fires and earthquakes. Emperors altered, restored, commemorated, and used the arena in different ways. The meaning of the games shifted as Rome changed. What began as Flavian political architecture became an established institution of imperial Rome. Later emperors inherited it as part of the city's expectation. To neglect the games too much could seem like neglecting the people. Commodus, the emperor made infamous by later writers, loved the arena with dangerous intensity. He appeared as a performer, killed animals, fought staged combats, and presented himself in ways many senators considered degrading to imperial dignity. His behavior shows how risky the arena was for rulers. The emperor was supposed to preside over spectacle, not become swallowed by it. If he entered the sand too eagerly, the line between ruler and performer blurred. The crowd might love it. The elite might hate it. Rome contained both reactions. The arena always tempted power toward theatrical excess. If one emperor provided 100 days of games, another might want more. If one show featured rare animals, another might demand rarer ones. Spectacle has an appetite that grows by being fed. The Colosseum was expensive because amazement is expensive. Animals had to be replaced, fighters trained, scenery built, mechanisms maintained, repairs funded, staff paid or compelled. The crowd's memory of one magnificent event became the standard against which the next could be judged. Public generosity could become political burden. This helps explain the long decline. The end of gladiatorial combat was not a simple moment when one law erased an ancient habit. Christian criticism mattered. Changing moral frameworks mattered. Imperial law mattered. But money, politics, administration, and the changing shape of the empire mattered too. The world that had made the Colosseum central was changing. Rome itself was no longer the unquestioned political heart of imperial power. Emperors spent less time there. The costs of huge spectacles became harder to justify. The civic language that connected emperor and Roman crowd lost some of its old force. Animal hunts continued longer than gladiatorial combat in some forms. Other events occupied the building, but the age of the Colosseum as the great theater of gladiatorial Rome faded. Then the building began another life. This is one of the most remarkable things about it. The Colosseum did not simply stand as a preserved museum after the last games. Ancient buildings rarely receive such kindness. They are used, stripped, patched, inhabited, misunderstood, repurposed, sanctified, fortified, and mined. The Colosseum became a fortress for powerful families. It sheltered workshops and dwellings. It served as a quarry. Marble seats disappeared. Bronze clamps were torn out. Stones were reused in other buildings. Earthquakes damaged the structure. Plants grew in its crevices. The arena of death became a supply of building material. This may seem disrespectful, but it is also how cities survive. A medieval builder does not always see an ancient monument as sacred heritage. He sees available stone. Rome itself is layered from reused Rome. Temples became churches. Columns were moved. Marble was burned into lime. Inscriptions were cut down. The ancient city fed the medieval and Renaissance city in a literal material sense. The Colosseum's holes speak of this afterlife. The pockmarks in the travertine, where metal clamps were removed, are scars of reuse. The missing marble is evidence of later need and greed. The collapsed side shows damage in time. The building that modern people admire as ruined became beautiful partly because it was wounded. The picturesque Colosseum of painters, poets, travelers, and tourists is not the building Titus opened. It is a survivor shaped by loss. In the 18th and 19th centuries, the ruin became a place of memory and imagination. Travelers on the Grand Tour came to Rome to encounter antiquity. Artists painted moonlight through broken arches. Writers stood before the ruined arena and thought about empire, mortality, and the fall of human power. The Colosseum became a symbol not only of Rome's greatness, but of the ruin of greatness. It showed that even the strongest stone can become fragment. Even the empire that brought lions and captives to its center can become grass growing through corridors. This symbolic life has never stopped. Today, the Colosseum is one of the most visited monuments on Earth. People enter with phones, timed tickets, audio guides, backpacks, water bottles, and expectations formed by school books, films, games, documentaries, paintings, and myths. Many come for grandeur. Some come for gladiators. Some come because every trip to Rome seems incomplete without it. Some stand quietly. Some hurry. Some take photos and leave. Some look down into the hypogeum and feel the darkness under the old floor. The modern visit is its own spectacle. The crowds that once came to watch combat have been replaced by crowds who come to watch the place where combat happened. The building still manages movement. The arches still guide bodies. The corridors still hold footsteps and voices. The arena still organizes attention. The ancient crowd came to see people risk death. The modern crowd comes to see the evidence of that desire and to wonder what to make of it. The Christian memory of the Colosseum adds another layer. A cross stands there. Later tradition associated the amphitheater with martyrdom. Christians were executed in Roman arenas, and persecution was real, but the exact scale and nature of martyrdom specifically in the Colosseum is more uncertain than popular memory sometimes suggests. The association nevertheless changed how later ages read the building. The arena of Roman violence became a place of Christian suffering, then a monument of moral reflection. The same stone could speak several languages across time. This is how monuments endure. They do not keep one meaning. They gather meanings. For the Flavians, the building was public generosity and dynastic legitimacy. For spectators, it was entertainment, social order, excitement, danger, and civic life. For gladiators, it was work, fear, fame, discipline, injury, and possible death. For condemned people, it was terror. For animals, it was transport and slaughter. For medieval Romans, it was fortress, shelter, and quarry. For Christian memory, it became a place of suffering and witness. For modern visitors, it is archaeology, tourism, beauty, unease, and Rome itself. No single meaning is enough. A building this long-lived becomes a conversation between ages. The hardest question remains the moral one. How could people watch? It is easy to answer too quickly. They were cruel, one might say. They were ancient. They were different. They had not developed modern compassion. There is truth in difference, but the answer is too comfortable. It makes cruelty belong safely to the past. It lets modern people stand outside the arena as if spectacle, violence, celebrity, punishment, and crowd emotion have disappeared from human culture. They have not. Modern societies do not recreate the Colosseum in the same form, and that difference matters. But human beings still gather around danger. They still turn suffering into images. They still make celebrities of bodies under pressure. They still enjoy controlled violence in sport and fiction. They still debate punishment publicly. They still let architecture and technology turn human emotion into mass experience. The Colosseum is ancient, but it is not alien. That is why it is uncomfortable. If it were only strange, it would be easier. The Romans who sat there were capable of love, family loyalty, tenderness, poetry, law, philosophy, engineering, and devotion. Some of them worried about cruelty. Some of them cheered it. Some probably did both at different moments. They were not monsters in a simple story. They were human beings living inside a culture that made certain kinds of violence meaningful, legitimate, and exciting. Human beings are good at this. They can wrap violence in honor, law, sport, punishment, ritual, entertainment, national pride, religious duty, or the language of courage. The Colosseum matters because it makes that wrapping visible. It shows not a hidden crime, but a public institution. Rome did not hide the arena. Rome built it at the center and filled it with people. The sand was public. So was the judgment. Yet one can also understand why the building remains admired. Its design is brilliant. Its proportions are powerful. Its crowd circulation is still instructive. Its construction demonstrates skill, planning, and a command of materials. The Colosseum influenced later stadium design not because later societies wanted gladiatorial slaughter, but because the building solved enduring problems of mass assembly. How to seat many people, how to move them, how to focus them on a central action, how to make a structure both functional and symbolic. Modern stadiums still carry echoes of Rome. A field below, tiers above, gates, sections, tickets, crowds, chants, vendors, heroes, rivalries, status boxes, public emotion, and architecture designed to amplify shared attention. The content has changed, but the spatial idea remains familiar. The Colosseum is one ancestor of the modern world every time a crowd gathers around a bounded field to watch bodies perform under pressure. This inheritance is not simple shame. It is continuity of form transformed by changed values. A football stadium is not the Colosseum, but it teaches why the Colosseum worked. Humans like to gather around a central drama. They like shared suspense. They like visible skill. They like belonging to a crowd. They like cheering and groaning together. Rome built one of the greatest ancient machines for that experience. The content of the central drama is where moral history changes. There is another way to stand inside the Colosseum, not at the center, but at the edge. Imagine being a low-status spectator high in the seating. The arena is far below. The emperor is small but visible. The senators are a band of privilege near the sand. The crowd is enormous, hot, restless, and alive. A person in the upper tiers might not see every detail, but he sees enough. The sound tells him what the eyes miss. A roar rises before the reason is clear. A wave of reaction passes through the building. He feels himself part of something larger than his own life. That feeling is powerful. It can be joyful, dangerous, comforting, or corrupting. To belong to a crowd is to borrow emotion. One person may hesitate at cruelty. The crowd roars, and hesitation weakens. One person may pity a fallen fighter. The crowd demands mercy, and pity becomes public. One person may feel anger at the emperor. The crowd shouts a complaint, and private irritation becomes civic pressure. The Colosseum made individual emotion collective. It also made the city visible to itself. A senator could look upward and see the people. A poor man could look downward and see the powerful. The emperor could see both. Women in the higher tiers could watch men of every rank watching other men fight. Foreign visitors could understand Rome not from a law code, but from bodies arranged in stone. The building said, "This is our order. This is who sits where. This is what we value. This is what we can afford. This is what we can make happen." The Colosseum was therefore a mirror. Rome looked into it and saw strength. Modern people look into it and see strength and horror together. Perhaps that is a better mirror. The deaths of animals are also part of the moral weight. They are sometimes treated as background because human violence draws more attention, but the number of animals killed in Roman spectacles was immense. They were captured from ecosystems far from Rome, transported under stress, displayed for their exotic power, then slaughtered for amazement. The arena turned living creatures into evidence of imperial reach. A lion did not represent Africa because it chose to. Rome made it represent conquest. This too is power. The empire could reach into a landscape, take what was rare, move it across the sea, and consume it before a crowd. The same logic applied to people. Prisoners of war, enslaved bodies, condemned criminals, trained performers, voluntary professionals in desperate or ambitious circumstances. The arena gathered bodies from many social conditions and placed them under Roman eyes. Some fought for glory. Some had no choice. Some died as punishment. Some survived to fame. The spectacle flattened many differences into one central fact. Rome controlled the conditions of their visibility. To be seen in the arena was not the same as being known. A crowd might know a gladiator's stage name and fighting record, but not his childhood. It might cheer a condemned person's death without knowing his grief. It might marvel at an animal without knowing the landscape from which it came. Spectacle simplifies. It turns life into a role. Fighter, beast, criminal, hero, coward, victor, defeated. This simplification is part of its danger. Human beings are easiest to hurt when they have been turned into symbols. Yet there were moments of individuality that broke through. Graffiti preserves names. Tombstones of gladiators sometimes mention age, origin, number of fights, companions, wives, or comrades. A fighter might be mourned. A fan might scratch admiration on a wall. A trainer might remember a pupil. A partner might bury a man whose public identity had been shaped by violence. Behind every arena role stood a private life, even when the crowd did not care. The Colosseum's history is therefore not only imperial. It is intimate. A boy seeing his first games. A woman climbing to the upper seating. A sailor working the velarium. A vendor selling food. A gladiator tightening a strap. An animal handler listening to a cage. A senator pretending indifference. An emperor measuring the mood. A condemned man hearing the crowd above. A worker cleaning sand after blood. A scribe recording expenses. A stonecutter repairing damage. A medieval family sheltering in a broken corridor. A Renaissance builder prying out metal. A modern archaeologist brushing dust from the hypogeum. A tourist standing still unexpectedly. The building contains all these imagined lives because it created conditions for them. Architecture is never only walls. It is behavior made possible. The Colosseum made certain behaviors possible at enormous scale. Entering, sitting, watching, shouting, judging, killing, staging, displaying, exiting, remembering. Its endurance makes those behaviors visible long after the people are gone. Look again at the arches. They are practical openings. They are also rhythm. Their repetition creates calm from mass. The building is huge, but not shapeless. The eye can count it, almost. Each arch is like a doorway into a Roman confidence that the world can be ordered, repeated, classified, and held. Even ruin has not destroyed that confidence entirely. The missing parts make the surviving order more poignant. Look at the hypogeum. It is the opposite of the facade. The facade is public and composed. The hypogeum is hidden, cramped, functional, restless. Above, spectacle. Below, labor. Above, crowd. Below, handlers and mechanisms. Above, the appearance of sudden miracle. Below, ropes, cages, sweat, instructions, fear. Every public performance has such an underside. The Colosseum simply makes the underside archaeological. Look at the arena. The original floor is gone in much of the modern presentation, leaving the underground exposed. This changes the emotional effect. Ancient spectators looked across a smooth plain of sand. Modern visitors look into the backstage. They see that spectacle had machinery. This exposure is appropriate for the present. The modern task is not to be fooled by the show, but to understand how the show worked. The Colosseum has become an anatomy of spectacle. Its skin, bones, passages, and buried organs are visible. The arena once hid preparation. Now the ruin reveals it. Rome itself does this everywhere. A church stands in an ancient hall. A street follows an old line. A column supports a later building. A fragment of inscription appears in a wall. Layers show through. The Colosseum is the most famous layer, but it belongs to a city made of time pressed together. To stand there is to feel that history does not lie behind the present. It stands beside traffic. This is why the first modern site of the Colosseum can feel almost absurd. One expects a sacred distance. Instead, there is a crosswalk, a metro stop, souvenir sellers, police barriers, ticket lines, and sunlight on stone. The ancient world is not far away in Rome. It is inconveniently present. It interrupts the day. It forces itself into the eye. It refuses to remain only in books. The building survives because many ages, for many different reasons, did not finish destroying it. Some preserved it. Some used it. Some stripped it but left enough. Some romanticized it. Some excavated it. Some stabilized it. Some sold tickets to it. Survival is rarely pure. The Colosseum remains not because everyone always respected it, but because history, damage, utility, memory, religion, tourism, and restoration combined in a way that left the Great Oval standing. That survival has changed the world. Without the Colosseum, modern imagination of Rome would be different. Films would look different. Stadiums might still be built, but one of their ancient ancestors would be less visible. The word arena would carry less immediate imagery. Gladiators would belong more to texts than to a space one can enter. Rome's grandeur and cruelty would have fewer stones through which to speak together. The building is not the whole of Rome. It is only one monument, and Roman civilization cannot be reduced to it. There were homes, markets, baths, libraries, farms, ports, temples, workshops, apartment blocks, law courts, gardens, army camps, tombs, and roads. There was tenderness and boredom, hunger and ambition, poetry and bookkeeping. But the Colosseum concentrates something essential: Rome's ability to organize the public life of the body, to make power visible, and to transform domination into spectacle. That concentration is why it remains Rome's greatest arena. Not the largest building Rome ever made in every measure. Not the most sacred. Not the most gentle. But perhaps the most complete in its collision of engineering, politics, crowd, violence, hierarchy, entertainment, and memory. It contains Rome's brilliance and Rome's brutality in one shape. A person who wants only to admire Rome must deal with the blood. A person who wants only to condemn Rome must deal with the beauty. The Colosseum gives neither side a simple victory. It asks for a more difficult attention. Near the end of the day, after ancient games, the crowd would have left through the passages. The sand would have been marked. Workers would have cleaned. Bodies would have been removed. Animals that survived would have been contained or killed later. Officials would have accounted for expenses. Vendors would have gathered their things. Spectators would have carried stories into the streets. Someone would exaggerate what he had seen. Someone would defend a fallen fighter. Someone would criticize the show. Someone would praise the emperor. Someone would hum a tune from the procession. Someone would dream badly. The building would remain. Night would gather in the arches. The Great Oval would cool. Rome would continue around it. Lamps, footsteps, dogs, distant voices, carts, guards, taverns, homes, temples, and the dark shape of the amphitheater where the day's spectacle had ended. Now, after all these centuries, the arena is quiet in a different way. The sand is gone. The crowd has changed. The emperors are gone. The fighters are gone. The animals are gone. The sailors who managed the awning are gone. The vendors are gone. The roar is gone. What remains is stone, space, and the question that stone keeps asking. What does it mean to build beautifully for violence? What does it mean to admire the building without admiring the cruelty? What does it mean that people have always gathered to watch danger framed by rules? What does it mean that the same species that can calculate arches, vaults, sightlines, corridors, and crowd movement can also make suffering into a public afternoon? The Colosseum does not answer. It stands. That may be why it is still so powerful. Some monuments tell you what to think. Triumphal arches announce victory. Tombs announce memory. Temples announce divine order. The Colosseum is less settled. It says, look at what Rome could do. Then it forces the next question. What did Rome choose to do with what it could do? The answer is magnificent and troubling. The building was made to last, and it has lasted. The events inside it were made to vanish in the moment, but they did not entirely vanish. They left marks in texts, images, bones, graffiti, laws, moral complaints, later legends, and the silence people feel when they stand above the hypogeum. The sand was raked clean, but memory was not. The Colosseum still stands because stone can outlive the intention of those who set it in place. Vespasian wanted legitimacy. Titus wanted inauguration and glory. Domitian wanted machinery and control. Later emperors wanted spectacle. Medieval families wanted fortification. Builders wanted stone. Christians wanted meaning. Travelers wanted ruin. Archaeologists wanted knowledge. Tourists want Rome. The building has served them all and belonged fully to none of them. It has become more than the Flavians built. That is what time does to monuments. It takes a political act and turns it into a human question. The exterior at night is especially strange. Lights warm the arches. Cars pass. The stone glows amber and gray. Shadows collect in the openings. The building looks almost calm, as if it has forgotten what it was. But it has not forgotten. The calm is only the calm of survival. Stones do not confess. They endure. A person standing there after dark may feel two kinds of awe. The first is awe at construction, that ancient hands made this, that geometry held, that materials survived, that a city could produce such scale. The second is awe at moral distance, that crowds once came here eagerly for sights many modern people can hardly imagine wanting to see, and that those crowds were, in their own lives, ordinary human beings capable of many of the same feelings as anyone now. Between those two kinds of awe, the Colosseum lives. Rome's greatest arena is therefore not only a place where gladiators fought. It is a place where later minds fight with Rome itself. Admiration against judgment, fascination against horror, beauty against blood, survival against loss. The fight has no final victor. Perhaps it should not. The Colosseum is too important to be turned into a simple lesson. It should remain difficult. It should remain grand and uncomfortable. It should remain a building one can admire only honestly, which means with the darkness included. At dawn, the modern city returns around it. Light touches the upper arches. Birds move where awnings once stretched. Tourists begin to gather. Guides prepare their stories. Guards open gates. Footsteps enter corridors built for another kind of crowd. The building receives them without surprise. It has received crowds for almost 2,000 years. And every crowd brings its own Rome. For the ancient crowd, Rome was empire, spectacle, hierarchy, punishment, courage, and public generosity. For the medieval crowd, Rome was ruin, shelter, danger, and stone to be reused. For the modern crowd, Rome is memory, beauty, unease, and the chance to stand inside history without being able to control what history means. The Colosseum accepts all of this. It stands in the city, broken and enormous, a building made by a dynasty that is gone, for games that are gone, from wealth and labor drawn out of a world that is gone. Yet it remains present, not as a dead object, but as a pressure on thought. There are many Roman monuments that inspire admiration. The Colosseum inspires admiration and argument. That is why it endures in the mind. To understand the Colosseum more closely, it helps to slow the building down and move through it as an ancient person might have moved. The first sight is not the arena. It is the outer wall. A Roman approaching on a day of games would see the facade before he saw anything else. The building rose above the streets with a confidence that made it seem almost natural, as if Rome had always needed an oval mountain of arches at its center. The lower arches open like mouths. The higher levels stacked above them, each order measured, repeated, and disciplined. Banners might hang. Statues may have stood in some of the upper openings. The crowd thickened around the entrances. Dust rose from feet. Voices bounced against stone. The day was still beginning, but the building was already awake. Tickets mattered because place mattered. A small token could tell a person where to enter, where to climb, or to sit. It was not simply practical information. It was a reminder that Rome knew who people were. Rank could be enforced in stone. The elite did not have to fight for a place near the action. Their position was built for them. The poor could enter the same building, breathe the same air, watch the same events, and share in the same roar, but from above, at a distance, in a place that taught them their place. This was one of the Colosseum's quiet lessons. Participation did not mean equality. A person passing through an arch might feel excitement and order at the same time. The crowd was large enough to be dangerous if uncontrolled, yet the corridors divided it. Stairs turned upward. Light entered through openings. Feet scraped on stone. The sound changed as one moved inward. Street noise behind. Interior murmuring ahead. The high open space of the seating bowl drawing closer. A spectator did not simply arrive. He was processed by architecture. Then came the first view of the arena. For a person used to narrow streets, houses, shops, workshops, and dense urban noise, the sudden opening of the oval must have been dramatic. Sky above, sand below, seats sweeping around in layers. The emperor's place visible, the crowd spreading like a human landscape. A building that had seemed massive from outside now became space. Its purpose was not to enclose a secret, but to reveal a center. Everything pointed toward the sand. The central emptiness was the most important part of the building. The arches, tiers, corridors, awning, stairways, barriers, and entrances all existed to frame that floor. The arena was a blank page that could be rewritten across the day. In the morning, a hunting ground. At midday, a place of judgment. In the afternoon, a school of courage and death. During special events, a mythic landscape, a battlefield, a forest, a desert, a place where a god's punishment or a hero's trial could be staged in front of Rome. The blankness gave power to the transformation. A modern theater changes by curtain and lighting. The Colosseum changed by machinery, labor, animals, props, gates, sand, painted scenery, and the physical bodies of men who might not leave alive. The crowd's imagination helped complete the illusion. If a scene represented a forest, the crowd knew it was not truly a forest, but the presence of animals, branches, painted sets, and danger made the fiction enough. Rome did not need to deceive fully. It needed to overwhelm. Before the first event, there could be procession. Fighters might enter and display. Officials took positions. Music sounded. Attendants moved. The crowd identified known faces. A famous gladiator could draw cheers before he had done anything that day. The animals, when brought in view, carried their own shock. A Roman who had never seen a leopard alive could see one under the control of Rome. A child could remember that sight for a lifetime. The city became larger through what it displayed. The empire was not an abstraction in the arena. It had fur, teeth, horns, feathers, chains, accents, equipment, scars, names, and bodies. The morning hunts could be staged with astonishing variety. Sometimes animals fought one another. Sometimes hunters fought animals. Sometimes scenery created a landscape. Sometimes numbers alone created amazement. A single lion might be terrifying. Many animals, released and killed over a festival, became a statement of abundance and command. Rome could spend life extravagantly. That extravagance was part of the point. There was admiration in the skill of hunters, but also a deeper display. The animal world made subordinate to the city. The Colosseum gathered wildness and domesticated it through spectacle. A lion, dangerous in its own land, was placed inside Roman stone. A crocodile from the Nile, a bear from cold forests, a bull, a boar, a leopard, each was removed from the landscape that gave it meaning and inserted into Rome's theater. The crowd did not need to know the full journey. The final appearance was enough. That is how imperial centers often work. They consume distance without feeling it. The animal appears, and the forest vanishes. The captive appears, and the war vanishes. The treasure appears, and the burned city vanishes. The Colosseum was full of such compressed histories. A living creature, a weapon style, a costume, a prisoner, a staged myth, all could carry the weight of places and events that the crowd understood only through spectacle. At midday, the mood could change. The executions were not only intermission. They were part of the moral structure Rome claimed for itself. If the morning showed domination over nature and distant lands, the midday punishments showed domination over crime, rebellion, and dishonor. The condemned person was placed where everyone could see the consequences of falling outside Roman order. Some deaths were deliberately humiliating. Some imitated myths. Some made the body into scenery for a story already known. This theatrical punishment should not be softened. It was cruel. It was meant to be seen. Its visibility was the message. A private execution removes a life. A public execution teaches fear. Rome valued order, and the arena showed that the state could make disorder suffer in a way no one could miss. The crowd's reaction may have varied: excitement, disgust, boredom, pity, laughter, indifference. But the official meaning was power. After that, the afternoon combats offered a different kind of attention. A gladiatorial bout was structured enough to be judged as performance. The fighters entered not as random men thrown together, but as trained types. The crowd could see differences in helmet, shield, weapon, stance, and risk. A match could begin slowly. The fighters circled. The sand shifted. One tested distance. The other watched for a mistake. Breath mattered. Weight mattered. The helmet that protected could suffocate. The light shield that allowed speed left more body exposed. The crowd knew when something was skillful. A net cast at the wrong moment could mean disaster. A shield raised too late could open the body. A fighter could feint, retreat, push, wait, or explode into attack. The clash of metal was only one sound among many. Feet, breath, shouted advice, laughter, groans, whistles, cheers, the voice of an official, the rustle of thousands leaning forward at once. The Colosseum made combat public, but combat remained intimate for the men inside it. For the fighter, the crowd was both energy and threat. Fame could live in that roar. Death could too. A gladiator trained to perform under observation, but training does not remove fear. It only teaches the body what to do while fear is present. The fighter's courage, so admired by Romans, was not absence of fear. It was action within fear, made visible to the crowd. The Roman fascination with courage explains much, but excuses nothing. A culture can admire a real virtue inside a cruel institution. The gladiator's discipline may be genuine. The crowd's appreciation of bravery may be genuine. The sufferer's pain is also genuine. History often requires holding several truths that do not make one another comfortable. The arena also produced stories of friendship and loyalty. Gladiators trained together, ate together, shared danger, and sometimes formed bonds like soldiers. Funerary inscriptions can reveal comrades who paid for burial or remembered one another. The school could be harsh, controlled, and exploitative, but men living near death may still create companionship. The fact that a system is brutal does not mean every human relationship inside it is empty. A man might hate the arena and love the friend beside him. He might fear the lanista and trust the trainer who corrected his stance. He might dream of freedom, fame, money, revenge, or simply the next day. Some gladiators could earn the wooden sword, the rudis, symbol of release from compulsory fighting. To receive it was to step out of the role that had defined one's public body. Yet some retired fighters returned as trainers, attendants, or even voluntary performers. The arena could trap, but it could also become a world whose skills and relationships were hard to abandon. Dangerous professions sometimes create identities as powerful as the danger itself. The crowd's desire for judgment reached its peak when a fighter fell. The fallen man might raise a finger. The victorious opponent might look toward the official. The crowd began to speak with hands, cloths, shouts, gestures, and noise. In that moment, the arena became a court. It did not decide guilt or innocence. It decided whether courage had been sufficient. Had the man fought well enough to live? Had he entertained enough? Had he shown the posture expected of a Roman kind of bravery, even if he was not fully honored as a Roman man? This is the most chilling part of the glamour. A life could depend on performance. Not only performance of skill, but performance of dignity. To plead too much could damage the chance of mercy. To accept defeat with composure could improve it. The fallen fighter had to act even in defeat. He had to show the crowd how to read him. His survival might depend on making his fear look honorable. The Roman elite often claimed to value self-control. The arena turned that value into spectacle under threat of death. The audience could leave feeling it had witnessed moral truth. Modern unease begins there. The Colosseum did not merely show violence. It made violence feel meaningful. That is what strong cultural institutions do. They take acts that might otherwise seem unbearable and place them inside stories. Courage, justice, punishment, generosity, fate, discipline, victory. Once inside a story, violence becomes easier to watch. Rome was not alone in doing this. Every age has ways of organizing its appetite for danger. Some are physical, some are symbolic, some are legal, some are narrative. The Colosseum is extreme because the organization is so visible and the stakes were so literal. It leaves little room for denial. People came, people watched, people enjoyed, people judged, people died, and still the building is beautiful. Perhaps the beauty made the violence feel safer. A well-ordered setting tells the mind that what happens there is controlled. The barriers are firm. The seats are assigned. The emperor presides. The rules are known. The fighters are trained. The crowd has a role. The sand can be cleaned. If the spectacle were random murder in an alley, it would horrify. In the arena, it became civic ritual. Order can civilize brutality without removing brutality. The Colosseum teaches that distinction. The engineers, of course, did not design a moral problem. They designed a building. Yet architecture always serves purpose. A corridor can guide worshippers, prisoners, shoppers, students, soldiers, patients, voters, or spectators. Form is not morally neutral once it is joined to use. The Colosseum's brilliance lies in how perfectly it served its purpose. The trouble lies partly in what that purpose was. This makes the building harder to praise, but not less important. A poor building for cruelty might be ignored. A great building for cruelty must be remembered carefully. It shows how intelligence can serve anything. Mathematics can calculate sightlines for compassion or spectacle. Engineering can move water to cities or animals to death. Administration can distribute grain or organize executions. Skill itself is not virtue. It depends on what it is made to serve. Rome was rich in skill. The Colosseum shows that wealth of skill with painful clarity. The emperor's position within this world was delicate. He gave the games, but he also had to behave correctly while receiving the crowd's reaction. Too little interest could seem cold. Too much interest could seem vulgar. Too much generosity could be admired but financially reckless. Too little generosity could be resented. A ruler's conduct at the games became part of his public image. An emperor could be praised for magnificent games. He could also be condemned for loving them too much. Roman moralists often used the arena to discuss wider anxieties: luxury, cruelty, crowd behavior, social decay, masculine virtue, female desire, imperial excess, the dangers of pleasure. The games were therefore not culturally simple even then. They produced fascination and discomfort at the same time. That tension did not begin with modern scholarship. It was already inside Roman life. The Colosseum also stood near other powerful spaces. The Roman Forum lay close by, filled with temples, basilicas, arches, speeches, trials, memories of the Republic, and the accumulated monuments of political life. The Palatine rose nearby, seat of imperial palaces. The Arch of Titus stood as memory of victory in Judea. The Domus Aurea remained as the ghost of Nero's excess. The amphitheater did not stand alone in an empty field. It stood inside a landscape of power competing with other memories of power. To walk from the Forum toward the Colosseum was to move between forms of Roman public life. Law, triumph, religion, monarchy, entertainment, punishment, and memory all stood within reach of one another. Rome did not separate politics and spectacle the way modern categories sometimes pretend to. A triumph was political theater. A trial could be performance. A funeral could be public display. A building could be propaganda. The games belonged to that broader language. The Colosseum's construction on Nero's lake therefore remained meaningful long after people stopped thinking daily about Nero. A city remembers through location. Even when explanations fade, the arrangement of monuments continues to shape movement. People walked where water had been. They sat where private pleasure had been erased. The Flavians placed their message in the ground itself. Central Rome is not Nero's garden. It is a public arena under our dynasty. The irony is sharp. A monument built to reject one emperor's excess became the setting for other forms of excess. But political messages often age in ways their creators cannot control. The Flavians wanted stability, legitimacy, and gratitude. They produced a monument that outlived their dynasty so completely that many modern visitors barely think of them. The building has swallowed its builders. Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian remain important to its history, but the Colosseum is now larger in memory than the names attached to its beginning. Time reverses ownership. At first, emperors own monuments. Later, monuments own emperors. The name Colosseum itself points to this instability of memory. The building was connected with a colossal statue nearby, originally associated with Nero and later altered in meaning. A statue gives a nickname to an area. The nickname attaches to the amphitheater. Centuries pass. The original statue disappears. The name remains. This is how language survives. Not always logically, but stubbornly. The Romans who first entered the building would not have called it exactly as modern people do. They would have recognized it as the great amphitheater. They would have known the dynastic context. They would have known the emperor's gift. Names shift, but the stone keeps enough continuity for recognition. The arena's physical details also shifted. There were repairs after fire. There were additions and restorations. Seats changed. Surfaces were stripped later. The hypogeum altered what could happen on the floor. The building seen today is not a frozen image from 80 CE. It is a layered object, ancient even in antiquity, then medieval, Renaissance, modern, and contemporary. To ask what the Colosseum really was means asking when. In 80 CE, it was a new imperial gift. In Domitian's time, it was a more complex stage machine. In late antiquity, it was an inherited monument of public life under changing beliefs and economic pressures. In the Middle Ages, it was ruin and material and shelter. In the Romantic Age, it was a symbol of fallen empire. Today, it is a protected archaeological site, a tourist destination, a moral image, and a global icon. Each age stands in the same oval and sees its own question. The late antique decline deserves patience because simple stories are tempting. One story says Christianity ended the games because Christian compassion defeated pagan cruelty. Another says economic decline ended them because money ran out. Another says political change made Rome less central. Another says taste changed. Each contains part of the truth. None is enough alone. Beliefs changed. Laws changed. Costs rose. Imperial priorities shifted. The city changed. The West's political structure weakened. The old civic relationship between emperor and Roman crowd lost force. The games required a world of supply, training, money, animals, personnel, and public expectation. When that world changed, the institution became harder to maintain. Great customs can vanish not because everyone suddenly hates them, but because the conditions that made them natural slowly disappear. The Colosseum without the games became a problem of space. What does a city do with a massive structure whose original function has died? It uses it. It adapts it. It breaks it. It fears it. It sanctifies it. It lives beside it. For centuries, the building was not an archaeological treasure, but an available part of urban life. Animals could be kept there. Craftsmen could work there. Families could shelter near or within its ruins. Fortified areas could be built into it. Stone could be taken from it. Plants could grow in it. This afterlife is not an interruption of history. It is history. A monument does not become historically important only when archaeologists arrive. The centuries of reuse are part of its story. The stripped marble, the missing bronze, the collapsed sections, the Christian cross, the restorations, the tourist paths, all are chapters. The ancient arena did not pass directly from Titus to the museum. It passed through need. Need is one of the strongest forces in cities. People needed stone. They needed shelter. They needed places to work. They needed meanings for ruins they inherited. The Colosseum gave them all of that in different ways. The modern preservation of the Colosseum required a change in attitude. A ruin had to become heritage. That is not automatic. Societies must decide that old stone is worth more left standing than broken and reused. They must create laws, institutions, money, and habits to protect it. The Colosseum's survival in its present form is therefore also a modern achievement, not only an ancient one. The building has become a classroom without walls. People learn there even when they do not intend to. They learn scale. They learn that Rome was capable of enormous organization. They learn that ancient entertainment could be brutal. They learn that ruins have layers. They learn that tourism can crowd a place almost as intensely as ancient spectacle once did. They learn, perhaps, that admiration should be complicated. Complicated admiration is not weakness. It is maturity. The Colosseum does not ask people to stop feeling awe. It asks them to make awe honest. To admire the arches is right. To admire the crowd system is right. To admire the courage of some fighters is understandable. To admire the killing would be another matter. The building teaches the difference between understanding and celebration. This distinction is essential for history. To understand Rome is not to excuse Rome. To judge Rome is not to refuse to learn from it. History at its best does both. It enters another world deeply enough to see why people acted as they did, and it keeps enough moral clarity to recognize suffering when it appears. The Colosseum is one of the best tests of that balance. A shallow condemnation sees only savagery and misses the sophistication. A shallow admiration sees only grandeur and misses the victims. A deeper encounter sees both. The building stands between them. There is one more thing the Colosseum shows: the power of shared attention. 50,000 people looking at the same space become a force. Their attention gives meaning to what happens below. Without the crowd, a gladiators movement is only a fight. With the crowd, it becomes public drama. Without the crowd, the emperor's generosity is private expenditure. With the crowd, it becomes political relationship. Without the crowd, punishment is death. With the crowd, it becomes warning, lesson, and spectacle. Modern life is filled with devices for shared attention. Screens, stadiums, platforms, arenas, news events, ceremonies, concerts, trials, competitions. The Colosseum belongs to the ancient genealogy of such devices. It reminds us that technology does not have to be electronic to organize mass emotion. Stone can do it. Sand can do it. Seating can do it. A gate opening at the right moment can do it. The Romans built a technology of attention. That may be the most modern thing about the Colosseum. It is not modern in values, materials, or law, but it is modern in its understanding that a crowd, once gathered, can be guided through suspense, shock, relief, judgment, laughter, and loyalty. Whoever controls the structure of attention controls part of the public mind. Rome understood this with architectural clarity. The emperor did not need every spectator to love him privately. He needed the crowd to feel, for a few hours, that Rome was abundant, ordered, and centered on imperial generosity. The games could not solve poverty, politics, or social tension, but they could create a shared experience strong enough to matter. A hungry person still needed grain. A resentful person might still resent. Yet the day in the amphitheater could temporarily bind the city through spectacle. Temporary things can be politically powerful. A parade ends. A festival ends. A game ends. A speech ends. A performance ends. But the feeling can remain, and memory can shape loyalty. The Colosseum produced such memories again and again. A boy who saw his first lion there. A woman who watched a favorite gladiator survive. A citizen who heard the crowd shout a complaint and the emperor respond. A foreign envoy who understood Roman scale in one glance. These memories helped build Rome inside people. The arena turned empire into experience. That is why it mattered. The Colosseum also forces the question of what kind of stories people choose to tell about buildings. In some periods, people have emphasized gladiators. In others, Christian martyrs. In others, engineering. In others, imperial cruelty. In others, tourism and world heritage. The building permits all these stories because all touch something real or something believed. But choosing one story too completely can flatten the monument. A truthful telling must let the building remain crowded with meanings. It was Flavian propaganda. It was brilliant engineering. It was mass entertainment. It was a place of death. It was a workplace. It was a social diagram. It was a political instrument. It was a ruin. It was a quarry. It was a sacred memory for later Christians. It is a tourist icon. It is a warning. It is a wonder. These meanings do not line up neatly. They overlap like voices in a corridor. That is fitting because the Colosseum was never quiet when it was alive. Imagine the end of a successful ancient show. The emperor has been cheered. The crowd begins to leave. The passages fill. Vendors collect what remains. Friends argue about the best fight. Someone imitates a gladiator's stance. Someone curses a bad seat. Someone carries a child half asleep. Someone has lost money on a wager. Someone has seen more blood than expected and says little. The sun lowers. The sand below is no longer central. The city pulls the crowd back into streets. The Colosseum empties. Its emptiness after noise must have been extraordinary. A building designed for a crowd has a special silence when the crowd leaves. The shape remains ready. The seats still face inward. The gates still wait. The arena floor still holds the day's marks. Such a silence is not peaceful exactly. It is expectation without fulfillment. Modern visitors feel another version of that silence even when surrounded by tourists. The ancient noise is absent, and its absence is part of the experience. One hears guide voices, cameras, footsteps, fragments of language, but the mind supplies a roar that is not there. The gap between present sound and imagined sound creates the strange melancholy of the place. The Colosseum is never just seen. It is mentally completed. One supplies the sand. One supplies the awning. One supplies the colored surfaces. One supplies the smell and crowd. One supplies fear. One supplies the moment when a gate opens. Archaeology gives evidence. Imagination gives motion. Without imagination, the ruin remains stone. With too much fantasy, truth disappears. The work is to imagine carefully. Careful imagination is what the Colosseum deserves. Not bloodless diagrams only. Not sensational fantasy only. A careful mind can picture the mechanisms and remember the bodies. It can admire the arches and think of the animals. It can understand the politics and feel the unease. It can see Rome at its most organized and ask whether organization makes a thing good. The answer, again, is no. Organization makes a thing powerful. Goodness must be asked separately. The Colosseum remains powerful. Whether it is good depends on which part one means. The ingenuity of builders, the courage of some fighters, the public life of the city, the suffering of the condemned, the destruction of animals, the use of conquest wealth, the later preservation of memory. A monument this complex cannot be morally summed in one word. It can, however, be approached with humility. The people who built it did not know how long it would last. They knew they were building greatly, but not that people 2,000 years later would stand there with small glowing machines in their hands, debating ethics, buying timed entrance tickets, and looking down into the hypogeum with a mixture of fascination and sorrow. They did not know their public arena would become a world monument. The people who died there did not know their fear would become part of a lesson about civilization. That thought should make the place quieter. The dead should not be reduced to atmosphere. Every historical monument built around suffering carries this danger. The more beautiful the site, the easier it is to let the pain become decorative. The Colosseum resists that if one lets it. The stripped floor reveals the machinery. The broken stone reveals damage. The history reveals conquest. The moral unease remains too strong to be smoothed away completely. This unease is valuable. It keeps admiration awake. The Colosseum at sunset may be one of the most beautiful sights in Rome. The stone warms. The arches darken inside. The sky changes behind the broken upper wall. Modern crowds thin. The building seems almost gentle. But gentleness is not its whole truth. The sunset falls on the same spaces where the crowd once gathered to watch death. Beauty has not purified the past. It has only covered it in light. Perhaps that is why the building continues to matter. It refuses to let beauty and violence be separated. It shows what human beings can make. It asks what human beings should make. It does not flatter anyone. The ancient Romans are not allowed to appear only noble. Modern visitors are not allowed to feel only superior. The monument belongs to a species capable of arches and cruelty, memory and appetite, discipline and excess, awe and judgment. That species is still here. The Colosseum knows us better than we may like. There is another path into the Colosseum, one that begins not with the crowd, but with the men whose work made the games possible. Before any fighter stepped into the sand, a whole invisible city had to operate beneath and around the visible one. The arena required carpenters to repair flooring and mechanisms, sand workers to prepare the surface, animal keepers to move cages, guards to control access, attendants to carry weapons, doctors to wait for injuries, trainers to judge readiness, cleaners to remove blood, clerks to record costs, and officials to keep the program moving. Public spectacle is always more organized than it appears from the seats. For the audience, a beast suddenly appearing from below could feel like wonder. For the workers below, that wonder was labor, danger, timing, and fear. An animal frightened by darkness and noise might strike at the bars. A lift could jam. A rope could fail. A trapdoor had to open at the right moment. A cage had to be positioned exactly. A handler standing too close could die before the crowd even understood what had gone wrong. The hypogeum was therefore not only theatrical machinery. It was a workplace under pressure. It was dark, crowded, and loud. Above, tens of thousands waited for amazement. Below, people had to create it. The contrast between the polished public image and the anxious hidden labor is one of the most human parts of the building. Every great spectacle has a backstage where glamour becomes work. The Colosseum's backstage was built in stone, under sand, with the smell of animals and the sound of the crowd pressing down from above. A gladiator waiting there before combat occupied a strange mental place. He was prepared, but not safe. He might know his opponent's type. He might have trained for that pairing. He might trust his own body, his shield, his helmet, his reach, his stamina. Yet no training could remove accident. A foot could slip, a strap could loosen, a neck could fall badly, a wound could open quickly. The crowd might favor him or turn against him. The official might be merciful or not. The arena made a man's future depend on minutes. The moment before entrance may have been worse than the combat itself. Waiting gives fear space to grow. The body hears the crowd before it sees the light. The fighter knows that on the other side of the gate, he becomes public property. His gesture, breath, stumble, courage, pain, and possible death will be read by strangers. The arena turns private terror into communal interpretation. This is one of the reasons gladiatorial courage mattered so much to Rome. The fighter did not merely risk death. He risked shame before a city. The same was true, in another way, for the emperor. The imperial box was safe, but it was also exposed. Everyone knew where to look. The emperor's face, gestures, boredom, generosity, impatience, and judgment could become part of the day. A ruler who wanted the crowd's affection had to manage himself as carefully as the games were managed below. He had to appear powerful without seeming afraid of the crowd, generous without seeming wasteful, attentive without seeming vulgar, merciful without seeming weak, severe without seeming cruel in the wrong way. Roman power often looks absolute from far away. Up close, it required performance. The emperor at the Colosseum was surrounded by guards, officials, family, and ritual dignity, but he was also sitting before a crowd whose collective voice could not be ignored. In the older republic, the Roman people had voted, assembled, and acted politically in forms that changed under the empire. The arena did not restore republican power, but it allowed the crowd moments of presence. A shout could become a petition. A chant could become pressure. A response could be demanded in public. This made the Colosseum dangerous in a subtle way. The ruler used the building to control emotion, but emotion can exceed control. A crowd gathered for entertainment may become a crowd with grievances. It may cheer too loudly for the wrong person. It may mock, demand, or reveal a mood that private reports have hidden. The games gave emperors a way to appear before the people, but appearance always involves risk. Power wants visibility and fears it at the same time. The Colosseum held that tension in its seating bowl. The senators near the front also performed themselves. Their seats marked rank, but rank had obligations. To appear properly, react properly, dress properly, and be seen among one's peers mattered. Elite Romans often wrote as if they were above the vulgar passions of the crowd, but their attendance placed them inside the same institution. They may have judged the crowd while sharing its spectacle. Social superiority does not remove participation. The upper seats told another story. Women, the poor, and lower status groups higher in the structure experienced the building from distance. The arena below was still visible, but the bodies were smaller, the details less clear, the sound more important. From above, the whole crowd itself may have been as impressive as the fighters. A woman seated high could see Rome arranged beneath her. Senators, equestrians, citizens, the imperial presence, the sand, the gates, the machinery of the city made visible in levels. The Colosseum taught hierarchy to everyone, not only to those at the bottom. The higher one sat, the more one saw hierarchy from above while remaining subject to it. The lower one sat, the more one felt proximity to action and authority. Space made status bodily. A long climb to a distant seat was not an abstract social fact. It was tired legs, heat, and a view from far away. Still, even the highest seat belonged to the same event. This mattered. The games could include people who were otherwise separated by wealth and rank. Rome came together without becoming equal. The Colosseum produced unity through ordered inequality. That may sound contradictory, but many societies do exactly this. They gather people in a shared ritual while making sure every person knows their position within it. The arena's political genius lay there. It allowed the people to feel included in empire without allowing the social order to dissolve. The games also trained emotion. They taught when to cheer, when to laugh, when to pity, when to demand death, when to admire courage, when to see punishment as justice, when to see imperial spending as generosity. These lessons were not written like school exercises. They were absorbed through repeated public experience. A child who attended the games learned Rome through the body: heat, noise, rank, excitement, fear, judgment, and the sight of power presiding over risk. This is why the Colosseum should be understood as education as well as entertainment. Not gentle education, not moral education in a modern sense, but cultural training. It taught Romans what Romans were supposed to admire. It taught the difference between courage and cowardice as the crowd defined it. It taught that Rome could bring distant creatures to its center. It taught that criminals and rebels could be made into warnings. It taught that the emperor gave and judged. It taught that social hierarchy was natural because it was built into the seats. The stone did not speak, but it instructed. The games also interacted with memory of death. Gladiatorial combat had roots in funeral ritual, where blood and combat honored the dead. By the imperial period, the connection had changed and expanded beyond its original form, but traces of the association remained in the seriousness of combat and the language of honor. The arena did not present death as meaningless. It framed death as service to memory, order, punishment, fame, or imperial generosity. Again, framing matters. A death framed as noble becomes easier to admire. A death framed as punishment becomes easier to accept. A death framed as entertainment becomes easier to consume. The Colosseum was powerful because it could shift frames across a single day. Morning, wonder. Midday, justice. Afternoon, courage. Evening, imperial abundance. The crowd moved through these interpretations almost as if through chapters. The building's architecture supported that emotional movement. Its scale created collective intensity. Its central floor kept attention focused. Its entrances and exits allowed rhythm. Its underground machinery created surprise. Its seating hierarchy placed every witness inside Roman order. Its awning and services made long attendance possible. Its position in the city gave political meaning to arrival and departure. Nothing about the experience was accidental. Even boredom had a role. A long day of games could not maintain constant intensity. There would be waiting, chatter, snacks, distractions, moments when the spectacle did not grip everyone equally. This too is human. Great public events are not experienced uniformly. One spectator is transfixed. Another is hungry. Another is flirting. Another is calculating a debt. Another is watching the emperor more than the arena. Another is thinking about the heat. The crowd is one body from a distance and thousands of separate minds up close. The Colosseum gathered those separate minds and gave them a shared object. That object was the sand. The sand itself deserves attention. It was practical, but also symbolic. It covered the floor, received footprints, took blood, concealed mechanisms, and could be renewed. After an event, it could be smoothed. This smoothing is haunting. It allowed the arena to begin again. The marks of one death did not have to remain visible for the next. Spectacle requires continuity, and continuity requires cleaning. Someone did that work. The workers who raked and replaced sand rarely appear in grand stories, but they are part of the moral reality. Violence leaves mess. Public violence requires people to manage that mess. A crowd can cheer and leave. Someone else handles the aftermath. This is true in many institutions. The cleaner knows what the spectator can forget. By evening, the whole building may have felt exhausted. The crowd's energy, the animals' fear, the fighters' tension, the officials' concentration, the workers' labor, the emperor's performance, all passed through the structure and then faded. A monumental building can absorb many days like that. Stone does not tire, but people do. The Colosseum survived because human exhaustion was renewed by human replacement. New workers, new animals, new fighters, new spectators, new emperors, new events. The building waited. That waiting is still visible. When the modern arena is empty, the oval seems ready for something. It no longer receives the old games, and it should not. But its form remains expectant. All stadiums have that quality. Empty seats face a center as if attention might return at any moment. The Colosseum is the most solemn version of this expectation because what it once expected was so severe. A final layer belongs to language. Words from the arena continue to move through modern speech. Arena, gladiator, colossal, even the misunderstood vomitorium. Such words detach from their ancient setting and survive in altered ways. Language, like stone, carries fragments of old habits. Every time the word arena is used for a modern contest, a small piece of Rome echoes, usually unnoticed. This is how antiquity remains present, not only in ruins, but in metaphors. Political life still has arenas. Public debate has gladiators. Spectacles are called colossal. Crowds still enter stadiums through passages that empty and fill with practiced efficiency. The old words have lost blood, but not shape. They remind us that Rome's forms were durable enough to outlive Rome's values. The Colosseum's greatest legacy may be this survival of form after transformation of meaning. The modern world inherited the stadium, not the gladiatorial death match. It inherited crowd architecture, not the legal dishonor of the fighter. It inherited public spectacle, not all the ancient assumptions that made Roman violence acceptable. Yet inheritance is never clean. The form carries memory. The stadium remains capable of intense collective emotion, hero worship, tribal identity, and public judgment. The content is changed, but the human mechanism is recognizable. This recognition should make the Colosseum feel closer and more disturbing. The Romans were not us, but they were not beyond human comparison. They built a world around values they believed made sense. Some of those values still attract admiration: courage, discipline, public generosity, engineering skill, civic gathering. Some repel: cruelty, hierarchy, domination, public death. Some do both, depending on the angle. The Colosseum holds them together because Rome held them together. That is why Rome remains difficult. Civilizations are not moral fables with one label. They are human structures, made from fear, need, imagination, pride, skill, violence, tenderness, ambition, and habit. The Colosseum is one of those structures made unusually visible. It does not allow the past to become simple. That is its value. A simple past teaches little. A difficult past continues to work. The Colosseum also reminds us that Rome was a city of surfaces and interiors. From outside, the amphitheater announced order. From inside, it organized emotion. Beneath the floor, it hid preparation. Around it, the city carried on. This layering is deeply Roman. The public face is disciplined. The mechanism underneath is busy. The social meaning is everywhere. A triumphal arch shows victory, but behind victory are marches, hunger, wounds, fear, and plunder. A temple shows piety, but behind piety are estates, offerings, priests, and politics. The Colosseum shows entertainment, but behind entertainment are war, labor, training, transport, money, animals, law, and death. To see only the surface is to miss Rome. To see only the underside is also to miss it. Rome's genius often lay in joining surface and mechanism so smoothly that power seemed natural. Water arrived through aqueducts as if the city deserved it. Roads stretched outward as if the empire were a single body. Baths offered leisure made possible by engineering and labor. The amphitheater offered spectacle made possible by conquest and administration. Roman civilization did not merely possess power. It built forms that made power feel orderly. The Colosseum may be the clearest of those forms. It made violence orderly. It made hierarchy orderly. It made crowd emotion orderly. It made imperial generosity orderly. Even its ruin remains orderly enough for the original intention to be read. One can stand outside and understand the entrances. One can stand above and understand the seating. One can look down and understand that the underground space serves surprise. The building still explains itself, though much has been lost. This legibility is one reason it feels so modern. A modern person understands queues, tickets, sections, entrances, assigned places, event schedules, famous performers, crowd noise, security, vendors, and the shared focus of a stadium. The difference lies in what the central event allowed. The structure feels familiar. The content feels alien. That combination creates the strange intimacy of the Colosseum. It is not a mystery in the sense of being impossible to understand. It is a mystery in the sense of being difficult to accept. The Romans could build so well. They could think so clearly. They could organize movement, material, and spectacle with such intelligence. And yet that intelligence served public suffering. This is not a contradiction limited to Rome. It is a human warning. Intelligence improves whatever it serves. If it serves healing, it heals more effectively. If it serves cruelty, it can make cruelty efficient and beautiful. The stones therefore ask for responsibility. They ask what skill is for. They ask whether greatness of construction can be separated from purpose. They ask whether a society can become proud of its power to stage pain. They ask whether later ages are honest enough to learn from a monument without turning it into either a postcard or a sermon. A person could spend hours inside the Colosseum and still not exhaust it. There is the story of the emperors, the story of Nero's lake, the story of Jerusalem's spoils, the story of builders, the story of tickets and seating, the story of gladiators, the story of animals, the story of condemned people, the story of women in the audience and the rare women in the arena, the story of the awning, the story of the underground machinery, the story of Christian memory, the story of medieval reuse, the story of modern restoration. All of these are true paths, but at the center of every path is the same oval. An oval is a simple shape. It has no corners to hide in. It gathers attention inward. It holds conflict at the center and surrounds it with witnesses. The Colosseum's shape is part of its moral force. Everyone faces the same space. The crowd becomes a ring of eyes. The person in the arena is seen from all sides. To stand in that imagined center is to understand exposure. The Colosseum was a building of exposure. It exposed courage. It exposed fear. It exposed punishment. It exposed social order. It exposed the emperor. It exposed the crowd to itself. Now, in ruin, it exposes the past. And because it exposes the past, it exposes something in us. That is why the quiet of the modern monument can feel heavier than the roar one imagines. The roar belongs to Rome. The quiet belongs to reflection. In that quiet, the building is no longer doing what it was built to do. It is doing something it was not built to do, something perhaps more important. It is making later people think. No Flavian emperor intended that. But history often gives monuments better purposes than the ones that created them. Even the damage has become part of the teaching. The missing marble says that later Rome needed materials more than it needed preservation. The holes in the stones say that metal once tied the building together and that later hands pulled it out. The broken southern wall says that earthquakes and time are stronger than any empire. The exposed underground says that modern curiosity now looks where ancient secrecy once worked. The restored paths say that the present has decided to care for what earlier centuries used and wounded. A perfect Colosseum would teach less. Its ruin shows that power does not preserve itself automatically. The empire could organize crowds, conquer provinces, and quarry mountains, but it could not command the future forever. The building survived by changing meaning, not by staying untouched. That is true of many human achievements. They endure only when later generations find new reasons not to let them disappear. The Colosseum's endurance is therefore not only Roman. It is medieval, Christian, Renaissance, archaeological, Italian, global, and personal. Every person who stands before it adds a small private meaning to the public monument. Someone sees ancient engineering. Someone sees cruelty. Someone sees a film from childhood. Someone sees imperial propaganda. Someone sees faith. Someone sees a warning. Someone simply sees Rome. The building is large enough to hold all of them, and that may be enough. Not a simple answer, not a clean verdict, but an encounter with a monument that refuses to become easy. Rome built an arena. Time turned it into a mirror. The mirror is cracked, enormous, beautiful, and dark, and people keep coming to stand before it because some part of them understands that the old stone is still asking a living question. The arena is dark now. The crowd has gone. The numbered arches hold the night. Somewhere beyond the stones, Rome continues. Scooters, bells, voices, footsteps, dishes in restaurants, water in fountains, and the long memory of a city that has never belonged only to the living. The sand is gone. The question remains. Sleep well. Good night.